People are pissed. People are upset at Apex Legends' ridiculous patch notes. Not just because there's a new legend. I know you already made a video on that. Make sure you watch. It's the last video that I put on my channel. But because these patch notes are missing something very important. Now, they have a new legend. That's usually enough. Not only that, we got a new map. There's only like, what, 3 others? 4? This is a brand new map. That's enough to explore for weeks. So why are people mad? We got gifting. You can give me gifts. I need them all. I'm kidding. I can give you guys gifts or in the chat or in the videos or do good things. That's dope. Stickers, new battle pass. But there's one thing missing. Where are the legend changes? Where are the legend balance changes? Look at all these gun changes. There's not one change to Seer. There's not one change to Horizon. There's not one change to any of these legends. And people, especially pros, are getting upset. Well, I'm going to tell you as we go through this why this happened and what the purpose is from a game dev side of things as to why it really is going to be better for the game than you think, and how some of these pros may be overreacting initially as to the value of this. Also, there's another benefit, which they're not even talking about, but first, let's get into it. Obviously, we've got Catalyst. We know her abilities by now. There's been 1,000 videos. I don't need to rush too much through this and spend a lot of time, but let's just talk a little bit about it. Playing with this in-game, I've had an experience of Catalyst myself. She has a very unique passive that's going to be very high level. One of the things that she's really, really good at is being a defensive legend, and that is her role. She's not a legend who has a recon passive. She can't scan a beacon. Thank goodness. Feels like every legend and their mother can scan a beacon at this point in time. No, not Catalyst, but she makes up for it in different ways in a very big part of the game, which is barricading doors. Now, this passive has a very important use. You can walk up to any singular door or double door, hold down the interact button, and she will basically make it so that it takes not 2 kicks to destroy that door, but 4. She will double the defenses of that door. So that means that it'll take 4 kicks on each side of a double door, meaning 8 kicks total to destroy a double door. Or if you kick in the middle, you'll have a chance to, get some action there. But if you have a singular door, it'll take 4. And one of the benefits of this is she can do it to 3 doors at a time. And that means it can be 2 double doors, or obviously 3 and a singular door. It could be 3 singular doors, 1 of the double doors. She can essentially make sure that there are 3 instances of that passive being barricaded. It's a very valuable thing when you're trying to hold a building. Her tactical actually feels really, really nice. You throw spikes onto the ground, you get kind of this awareness that enemies are near, and they get it too. If they run over it, they take some damage. They end up getting kind of slowed and messed up. And it's not like anything in Apex, an ability that's going to win a fight just by itself, but it's going to set them up to stop pursuing, to be easily chased, and obviously lose in a 1v1 fight. And they are pretty easy to throw, and you get 2 of them. They're kind of like Fuse's Knuckle Cluster. Think about it like that. Her ultimate is really what people are talking about. This is the reason I think we do not have any new character changes. It's Dark Veil. You make a wall of ferrofluid. What happens when you walk in, you get temporarily blinded when you enter past the massive wall that comes through. Shots can go through it, but guess what can't? Scans. And we go to the major conversation. Why do we not see the scan legend meta? Why do we not see Seer? And even Bloodhound has had some value, but Seer, Horizon, why is this comp not getting nerfed? It's because there are 2 options the designers thought was best to do, and I actually like both of them. 1, we have to figure out what everything settles at, right, before we make a change. If we introduce a new legend and we end up, in general, changing a ton of other legends, how do we tell whether the legend that we just put out was an appropriate, balanced legend if maybe everything shifts towards these legends falling and being irrelevant, or this legend becoming so much better that legend now doesn't get a chance to shine as kind of the new feature? It'd be like changing one gun that's never been changed before, but then all the other guns get 100% damage boost. So why would you choose that new gun? You won't see how it really matches up against the rest of the area. And that's one of those things, kind of a blanket approach. I like that. I like the reset approach. Let's think about it. The other thing is this. How do we know how well Catalyst does her job? Because as an anti-scan legend, this legend is supposed to be the legend who can stop scans from happening with this wall, which is on a pretty fast cooldown. Not going to lie. You throw one of those, accelerators on, you get your ult back pretty fast. And I started to see when I played her that, this is going to be a big part of the game. But how do you know how big it is if you nerf Seer to the ground before Catalyst comes out? If Catalyst is the counter to Seer and all these legends, this is going to force Catalyst to get played, to get experience, for people to test it out. And if it's true, then we won't have to nerf Seer. Catalyst will be the counter for Seer. And it goes into the age-old question of how do you like to design? Do you want to nerf things that are too strong and keep nerfing things down to where everything is really unremarkable? Or do you take something that's been effective and introduce something that is an effective counter so you give players choice and you give them an ability to reward themselves with smart decisions? And that, I think, is what Apex Legends is doing. And I think, yes, it is shocking to see no character changes, all weapon changes. But at the end of the day, how else are you going to understand the value of what the Catalyst anti-scan ultimate does? If they nerf Seer, no one played any scan legends anymore, then Catalyst would basically be a very difficult character to know where to take in the future, especially if one day she did get out of hand, because she's never really been able to expose her value in doing her number one job. I think when you look at the way balancing needs to happen, I have an opinion that why are we trying to make sure that the stuff that works becomes unworking? Why do we need something that's good to become not so good or kind of bad, to then be happy, when we can make other things that are good? Now, the only argument I see to this is power creep, and I say, okay, but is it not natural for human society to kind of power creep itself? It's like, listen, we started out walking, then we tamed animals, we got horses and buggies, we got the wheel, okay? Then, we made engines, we made cars, we made trains. Are you saying now if an electric car is too efficient and too fast, we got to be like, yo, don't make a faster car to compete with the car that's already exists. Let's go back a notch, everybody. Let's go back to the horse and buggy. Let's keep it, the power creep is getting too strong here. Same thing with the internet. It's like now you can do almost anything on the internet. What are we supposed to do? Do you want to restrict internet access and freedom for everybody? Be like, okay, 10 pages of web browsing a day. Otherwise, the internet, you could be doing anything all day long. That's too much. Let's reel it in. Or do we like, okay, well, people are going crazy on the internet. How do we build stronger protections against that? That's the idea that I think naturally is going to always happen. It's less fun to go backwards. It's more fun to have Seer still be viable and have a legend that truly counters, and then maybe Seer takes a back page. So that's the reason I believe that we are waiting to see it. I think they truly need to understand the balance of the character, and in order to do that, the character has a job to be an anti-scan legend, and we need to see how an anti-scan legend does in being an anti-scan legend in a scan meta. Otherwise, there's no point. All right? So, let's go into the balance updates, because I think this is also important because they changed some important things. Like, that's not, this is still a big part of the season. And in many ways, I think it allows us to not go into the next Pro League and all these things where we have too many things changing, right? We have now a lot of weapon changes coming up. Disruptor rounds are back. Those are massive. Disruptor rounds are, I think, some of the best things that have ever been added to Apex Legends. You're going to do more damage to shielding, and it's going to melt. I've won games on Disruptor rounds and Kings Canyon. I still have videos of that on my channel. It's one of my favorite types of play. The Massive is coming back, a shotgun that has always been meta when it's been on the floor, and I think we'll see that again. The 2-tap potential, the 1-tap potential on the ground always makes that really, really valuable. But we'll do some work today on the stream and figure that out. You know what I mean? We'll figure that out. Anvil receivers are back in. What does that mean? It means long-range poking is meta. The G7 Scout is the best weapon, I think, in the game because it's just so versatile. It's so useful, and it's a secondary weapon that I think you're going to see 2 or 3 players at high level running. How do you compete with that? How do you balance that out? Well, you add more lethal options for other weapons to compete with that range. And then you allow players to make different choices. So if you want to run an anvil receiver R301, you'll double or 1.7 times the value of your single shots. That's right. Most people don't know. You can press B in single fire on your flatline or your R301. I know people in my chat probably know, but a lot of people don't know who watch General Apex. You can press and go into a single fire toggle. That'll make it hurt if you have the anvil receiver. It'll be able to compete with things like the 3030 and the G7 Scout. And that means instead of running a flatline G7, you can run a flatline Mastiff and be fine with an anvil receiver. And then you have 2.5 versions of a weapon. That's something that we're going to see. It's going to help the meta significantly. The double tap trigger, it is going to be a rarity tier increase to legendary. What that means, we'll probably see it less. And let me just hold on. Let me just make this bigger if we can. I know that a lot of you are probably thinking, well, I can't even see this, dog. You might be right. You might be right. Here we go. That should be an overall benefit right there. I think that should be overall bigger. So we got the turbocharger, damage reduced by 1. This is actually a massive change because it's just a balance to something that is really hard to balance. I think that the payoff of this is for a negative experience being lessened for players and for enemies and for people like that. Because honestly, when you get a turbocharger, you feel like finally I found one. It's not something that on the using side you feel needs this, but it hurts when you're getting hit by a nice turbocharger. We've seen it come up a little bit more. It's a change. I'm moot on the change. Doesn't really matter for me, and I don't think it'll matter too much in your play. Hammer point rounds, though, removed from floor loot and crafting bundles. It's no longer going to be the P2020 that takes you down, and I think hammer points have just a very, weird cycle of being appreciated. I personally loved them in the beginning. I think when that and Disruptor came out, I was very excited. And now I've just really lost a lot of the value of hammer points. And here's the problem. The weapons the hammer points are used for never make that weapon more valuable in the situation you would even want to use it. Mozam P20 RE45, you'd have to run it as a secondary, and it'd have to be over a lot of these other weapons, like even a shotgun. And until a hammer point is better than a shotgun, it is not going to become something that we see often in the game, and that's okay. That not every weapon needs to be seen at high level, but that's the reason that it's not. If it was just as good as a Mastiff or a Peacekeeper or better, people would use it. I promise you that, because it just isn't a primary slot weapon and never will be, and you can't get around that. Boosted Loader, removed from floor loot and crafting bundles. It was a good run. I'm okay with that. I think this one will be back. I think the Boosted Loader was pretty fun. Remove Kinetic Feeder, and then the crafting rotation change. We have the Spitfire, the Peacekeeper are on the Crafter now, and the Havoc and the P20 on the floor. That's going to make the Havoc, obviously, I think, the weapon of choice. P20, it'll be nice to have some early games, but it won't be too exciting. These are two massively exciting weapons going, and I think this is going to make the crafting rotation a lot more impressive and impactful for players who do use it, and most do. At this point, most do craft. It's kind of a big part of the meta, getting your craft on. Who would have thought? It was a great addition to the game, by the way. Rampage LMG begins charged on first time pickup from the supply drop and removed heat decay over time. This is actually great, because what happens is when you're in the supply drop and you make a rush to get that weapon, you then are probably getting shot at. Most people have an eye on the supply drop. Being able to get the charge value of the Rampage the second it lands is a big buff to the ultimate potential and risk trade-off of going to get that weapon. So I like this change a lot. And obviously, if you end up, not making the most of it, you can go back, get your weapon. You've already done some good damage, charge it up yourself, go in whenever you want again. But I like that. Rampage and Sentinel, some serious stuff. Can recharge Rampage and Sentinel before previous charge has expired. This is actually pretty cool, because if you have a little bit of downtime, you can make use of it, right? Maybe you're not getting peppered and you're hitting some good shots. You can actually keep this charge going. It just, I think, is a quality of life change for sure. It's interesting how they took a look at some of the charging elements of that game. The Mastiff is back. The capacity, it's going to be increased, but they're going to obviously widen the blast pattern. It means it's harder to hit all of your pellets. They're going to spread out farther than being more tight, which would allow you to get more damage on a better shot. But up close, it'll still do all of those pellets. Damage per pellet decreased 14 to 11. That is a massive deal. And projectile growth is reduced, so it's not going to get bigger as I believe the projectile is shot and extended. It's going to stay that same size. So up close is where this is going to be really, really important. You're not going to be able to aim like halfway across the map like you did with the Care Package Mastiff and still hit like 35 and stuff like that. That is going to be a noticeable difference. And the reload can now be canceled with aiming down sights. Interesting. I wonder if this is a nerf on purpose, or if this is something someone thinks is quality of life. Interesting. So be careful about that. You're going to just basically have to make sure your reload finishes, or you are going to have to not try to reload, not try to aim down sights, maybe as most people do with the Mastiff in that type of scenario. So obviously trying to just make the Mastiff less of a beast. That's that idea. RE45, you get a nice damage increase from 12 to 14. This is massive, and I think disruptor rounds, getting that 30% more damage, scaling off on the extra 2 bullets already, two damage per bullet from the RE45. This is going to be massive. I can't wait to play this. This is one of those things that I'm actually going to be really looking forward to playing today. The L-Star reduced recoil at the beginning of the pattern. Stow animations adjusted to better match timing. So this is just a feel. The weapon will feel and look as if it's doing the animation adjusted with what you're experiencing from the game coming out. The L-Star has always been a little bit of an odd weapon, but reducing the recoil at the beginning means it's going to be easier to control the second that you start shooting it. So obviously a big buff for that weapon. I'm not sure how big, but it is a buff, and that's one of the ways to buff a weapon pretty significantly. Volt SMG, you could reduce the projectile speed, but you increase the projectile gravity. So this is a straight up just nerf. Like basically these bullets are not going to go as far and they are going to fall more. And so I think essentially just trying to make the Volt have its role in being a mid to close range specialist and not being able to compete with guns that are made for the medium to long range type of weapon play, like an AR, like a car, or like a flatline. And so really making it go, you have to make a choice. Do you want that medium close range? Because the Volt can't really do it all. And I think that's obviously just trying to bring that in line. The triple take gets a buff. And, always when you get a buff to a weapon like this, it can sneak up on you. I think the G7 is still going to have its value. The reason being, it's not nerfed here. And I think that's maybe the biggest surprise on this. The G7 is not nerfed. That weapon is a beast. And so what they're doing, and clearly, as you could see, going back to what we said to end the conversation now, they are buffing things to make them valuable, to give you choices versus taking away things that work the second that they work. I think this is a bold play, but I think it's the right play. Also, one of my favorite things that's happening, the R99 getting an extra bullet in the magazine and also getting an extra kind of level up because of that extra bullet overall in the magazine on the purple mag to an extra bullet in their blue mag as well. So I think this is going to make the R99 more valuable when you think of, what is it, 11 damage, I think? It's between 11 to 16 damage. I think it's 11. But you get 11 extra damage in your R99. And sometimes that's the difference, right? Somebody hits a full clip, but they survive by 9. That's a big difference. That last bullet is actually the difference in knocking someone down. And obviously that is going to make a big difference. Projectile growth reduced. This is the Peacekeeper. The same thing with the Mastiff. Those farther away shots going to be difficult to hit with that PK unless you're super, super accurate, and a lot of bug fixes as well. That is the patch notes update, and that is why, to begin and end with this video, why I believe people are upset about these patch notes. And I think take a deep breath, understand the bigger picture here, and understand the better scenario. May not be what you wanted now, but is it better to nerf characters the second they are valuable and not allow other characters to shine in the roles that could be there for them in the future to counter, to save, to change the metas upcoming? Or, should we not give those characters even a chance and take it all into our hands and go, oh, well, this character was going to be a counter, was going to be really valuable to the meta, but now it doesn't really matter. Go back to playing what you've been playing already because nobody's any good and everyone's just as good as each other, means everybody's average. I like these standouts. I like the meta shifting, and I like taking risks because I think it makes the game more interesting. So let me know what you guys think about that one. Very, very excited.